This is Christopher Smith with a Liberty Minute.
Hello, America. What comes to mind when you think of communism? Is it images of steely-faced spies attempting to stealthily quit their mission to undermine American national security? Or is it a scene out of The Hunt for Red October where we're engaging some rogue sub-captain? Or is it perhaps recollections, more realistically, of Senator McCarthy vetting communists during hearings for this House Committee on Un-American Activities? Whatever the case may be, I can tell you this. Our perceptions of communism have been entirely managed by those in a position to do so. Because if we actually understood what communism was and how it looks in Americana today, like the greatest generation before us does, and did understand when they were fighting it, we'd be asking for heads on a stick right now. Let's discuss how communists might appear as if they were stateside and politically active today. They may appear in any one of many faces we've come to somehow accept in the fabric of Americana. It's one of those voices masquerading as advocates of the average working class citizen we should focus on, because it has been borne out historically that those are anything but a friend of America's middle class and seek to destroy it at every turn they get. So as long as they can milk it for whatever political currency they can get from it, trust me, it's worth investigating. So let's take a second and explore the root of communism. Let's look at the definition of communal. One such definition may be shared by members of a community for common use, or relating to a community, i.e. communal or codependent relationship. Sound familiar? Let those who have an ear to hear understand. We have groups who are known to be associated with the far left and clearly engage progressive politics as we know today, but the composition is disparate. These are networks of fringe element groups cobbled together in a veritable who's who of fringe element dissonant groups who are actively abusing the First Amendment to undermine the guarantee of freedom to disagree with our government and to freely express such dissidence, insomuch that it's not acted upon, because to do so, that is the latter, is textbook definition of what we call treason. That was a slight digression. But who are some of these groups? Well, for one, unions. The expressed appearance of a group who does not pay any wages, but stands in between the employer and the employee as an agitator with leverage rather than relevance, because they promise to provide some obscene benefit, all at the cost of the company that they've infected, of course, to that end. Now, this is not to say that all unions are bad, but the template is such that we can't dismiss what their purpose is fundamentally, and that is to reduce the productivity and to make a mockery out of capitalism by becoming a wedge between efficiency and productivity to advance the cause of communism, so that the case could be made later that somehow capitalism failed. This tactic is classic Fabian incrementalism. So, examples would be teachers' unions, government employee unions, and big labor, and the like. These are who we need to be focused on. Who are some of the groups aiding and abetting the cause of communism? Well, the ACLU for one, and groups like it, such as the People for the American Way, and the Freedom from Religion Foundation. All of these fringe element groups are going to have one common thread, and that's going to find a unique way to subvert a fundamental American freedom for what they project as a civil liberty. I'm going to explain this real briefly. Civil liberties are not congruous to civil rights. One is subjective, the other is objective. These groups actively seek courts with activist judges that will rule in their favor, to bind up the rest of the populace in America with lawless fiat judicial activism, circumventing referendum, that is to say, the will of the people, because they all know it as well as we all do that they typically lose in a straight-on fight with the voters in trying to subvert the American values at the polls. A classic example of this is what happened on Prop 8 this past week with the same-sex ruling. It was reversed by an activist judge right here in California. So, if you've ever heard the word technocracy here, this is the express purpose of their existence, to be the bureaucratic arm of the usurping of the Constitution and the will of the people, and to aid in the distancing of accountability from the elected as they advance their agenda globally. Now, the ACLU is specifically pointed out here because they were founded by an American communist. That's right. They were founded by a person professing communist affiliations, a guy by the name of Roger Baldwin, who I will quote here as he expressed and stated goals of the American Civil Liberties Union. He goes on record as saying, quote, "I am for socialism, disarmament, and ultimately for the abolishing of the state itself. I seek the social ownership of property, the abolition of the property class, and the sole control of those who produce wealth. Communism is the goal. Well, you can't get more clear than that. And if you take a look at the stated goals and compare them with what the left wants to advance today, such as redistribution through the destruction of our capitalist system, disarmament, i.e. attacks on the Second Amendment, the abolition of personal property rights, ergo eminent domain abuses, and the flat-out elimination of our middle class, who, by virtue of the capitalist economy we have here currently, are the deepest pockets in the world. Why do you think Obama, Reid, and Pelosi are so hard-headed when it comes to ignoring the will of the people and advancing leftist spending agenda? It's because they're as close as they've ever come historically to having this perfect trifecta of stupid to accomplish the will of their communist forefathers. It is the fringe element who is the mouse who would roar as a lion here. From pornography to the weed lobby to homosexual groups as a lobby to scientific naturalism masquerading as science, all cobbled together to advance the displacement of our religious freedom because it convicts their behavior, to limit our freedom of self-sovereignty because they think they know better than us and want to rule us and govern us, to disarm us because they want to take our freedom from us, also because it's easier to do that when we're not armed. They want us dumbed down and distracted while they run off with the cream of America's wealth for themselves and their petty little band of licentious-minded autocrats who feel entitled to America's wealth because they've been chased out of the free marketplace of ideas. I'd say try not being insane for starters, and you're well on your way to figuring that one out. We will stop them, but it's at what cost between then? And how do we prevent this mess from ever flying back at us? That's food for thought today. What do you think? I'm Christopher Smith.